زي واحد قال واحد بمشي الحال. تعرف لك كم عين؟
You normally lose about half a litre of fluid through the skin, and that's without sweating. You lose about another half a litre by the evaporation, by the water you add to the air that you breathe in. And then you have a minimum amount of urinary losses, about 500 ml as well. So that totals about 1,500 ml, 1.5 litres. You gain about 300 to 500 ml from the food you eat and the water release when you break that down. So that gives you a general minimum water requirement per day per person of around about a litre. In survival situations, that can go down to around about 400 ml or 200 ml for a very short period. If you continue to lose fluid over acquiring it, and your body losses get to about 8 to 10% of body weight, then performance becomes impaired, dizziness, faintness, you get a rapid, thready pulse, rapid, shallow breathing, possibly because you're now hyperventilating, that's associated with pins and needles to the fingertips and around the mouth. And further losses then leads to hallucinations, delirium, with death usually intervening with acute losses around about 15 to 20% of body weight. In a short period of time, the skin appears to shrink, become shriveled, the lips can disappear or retract and start to reveal the gums, and the limbs become shrunken, scrawny. And death normally intervenes, although it's very much dependent on how much activity, how much water conservation goes on, but death normally intervenes within about 3 days. We don't have a tremendous store of accessible fluid, and we can very quickly lose, become dehydrated, lose fluid from the circulating blood volume, which then draws it from the fluid between the cells and then from the fluid in the cells. So hence you can, in as little as 3 days, lose that 15 to 20% of body weight by water that's necessary to result in death by dehydration. In contrast, we have a fairly plentiful energy supply. And so, the equivalent time in terms of starvation is something like 40 to 60 days. They have a higher surface area to mass ratio. They don't detect thirst as well. They're more likely to be active. It's very hard to keep children from keeping them inactive. And of course, as you consume energy by activity, you release heat, which makes you hotter, which means there's a greater amount of sweating going on. the general recommendation is you don't drink salt water. This comes from years and years of maritime survival stories, of course, because, and the same applies to urine, because the concentration of salt in these fluids is greater than that in the body fluids. So when you actually drink, in this case, salt water, you increase the salt content of the body, and then you increase the fluid requirement to get rid of that salt. So you actually dehydrate more quickly.